Moving on, thousands of people marched and gathered in Tel Aviv on Thursday night to push for the Israeli government to reach a ceasefire deal with Hamas and also bring hostages home. 6 months into Israel's war in the Gaza Strip, time is running out for relatives of hostages yearning to see the kidnapped come back home. When Hamas-led militants stormed into southern Israel on October 7th, they killed some 1,200 people and took around 250 hostages. Half a year into Israel's war, the families are in a race against time. In November, a week-long ceasefire deal saw the release of more than 100 hostages. But the war is dragging on with no end in sight and no serious hostage deal on the table. Israel says more than 130 hostages remain, with about a quarter of those believed dead. Well, divisions are deepening in the country over the best way to bring them home. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to both eliminate Hamas and also bring all the hostages back, but he has made little progress on both the fronts. He faces pressure to resign, and the US has threatened to scale back its support over the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Well, on and off negotiations mediated by Qatar, the US and Egypt have yielded little. As for experts, if a viable deal emerges, decisions will become harder and the divisions sharper. Israelis are divided into two main camps. Number one, some want the government to put the war on hold and free the hostages. On the other hand, some Israelis think that the hostages are an unfortunate price to pay for eradicating Hamas. The United Nations Secretary General pushed for urgent, meaningful and measurable progress to avert famine in Gaza. Guterres said that Israel's commitments to improve aid access in the Gaza Strip have had limited and sometimes absolutely no impact.
Apparent progress in one area is often cancelled out by delays and restrictions elsewhere. For example, although the Israeli authorities have cleared more aid convoys, those clearances are often granted when it is too late in the day to make deliveries and return safely. One can say that our personnel cannot operate in darkness in a war zone littered with unexploded ordnance. So the impact is limited, sometimes nil.
Reports suggest Israel will open a third crossing into northern Gaza later this month. The Zikim crossing will join the Erez crossing and Gate 96, which were respectively opened earlier this month and in March. Zikim will serve as the main route for aid to northern Gaza, as Erez and Gate 96 are less suited for large amounts of trucks. Meanwhile, U.S. State Department said humanitarian circumstances in Gaza are still dire and Israel needs to do more to allow more aid and coordinate with agencies on deconfliction.
There has been some measurable progress that we've seen when it comes to humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. But the circumstances within Gaza continue to be dire and more absolutely needs to be done. The crisis that we're seeing demands rapid expansion of these efforts. We are talking about making sure additional aid gets into Gaza, making sure additional steps and measures are taken towards deconfliction and appropriate humanitarian access.
Hundreds of demonstrators protested in Argentina's capital to call for President Milei's administration to withdraw its support for Israel and break off diplomatic ties. Argentine President Javier Milei has been outspoken in his support for Israel. Last February, he visited Jerusalem and met with Israeli President Isaac Herzog.